So, it has been announced recently that Jodie Whittaker and Mandip are coming back to reprise their Doctor Who roles in Big Finish, with, of course, Jodie coming back as the 13th Doctor and Mandip coming back as Yaz. Now, this is, of course, good news for people who are fans of her Doctor and fans of her era, and there are plenty of people out there that like both of those things. There are, of course, several of us who have issues with her era and issues with her Doctor, while still enjoying parts of her era. I enjoy parts of her era. I do not enjoy parts of her era, and I'm not a big fan of her as the Doctor, honestly. She's my least favorite Doctor of all the Doctors thus far. My question is do you think Big Finish can redeem the 13th Doctor? Kind of like maybe they did with the 6th Doctor, for example. I think a lot of us would argue that Big Finish has done a lot to really build the 6th Doctor into perhaps a better character, since the 6th Doctor didn't get a lot of time. And he was kind of originally conceived as a character who would slowly be peeled away like layers of an onion, where we kind of discovered more about him over time. And he never really got that time, only having 2 full seasons, really, and only getting what basically amounted to 11 TV stories, and of course Slipback as well, aside from spin-offs and novels. That Big Finish has really given him an opportunity to shine. It's been great having Colin back in the role. I feel like he's really matured in the role, too. I really tend to love Colin Baker with Big Finish as the 6th Doctor. His performances are always good. And he has so many good stories with stuff like Jubilee, Real Time, which I just saw for the first time recently, The Last Adventure, and of course some of the multi-Doctor stories he's in. I really feel like if you've only seen the 6th Doctor in television, you're not getting a full view of him. I also really enjoyed him in The Wrong Doctors, where you have 2 very different versions of the 6 Doctors interacting. Or is it 3? Can't remember if it's 2 or 3, actually. Good story, though. But I really feel like you're kind of doing yourself a disservice as a Doctor Who fan, because Big Finish really takes this character and fleshes him out. And this, again, with the 8th Doctor, that's kind of where we really got to get a feel for the 8th Doctor, with the 8th Doctor really only having the TV movie for so long until we got Night of the Doctor, and then him very briefly in Power of the Doctor. We just don't have a lot of him on television. So the 8th Doctor, I mean, Big Finish is kind of, his lair. He's kind of Lord of Big Finish. And they've done so much with that. It really gives us a chance to get a feel for the 8th Doctor, to really flesh him out, figure out what makes him tick, and then see his journey, because early 8th Doctor is very different from later 8th Doctor. The 8th Doctor does go through quite a bit of loss and change. I say this as someone who's heard a lot of his stuff. I haven't, but I am aware of that. But as someone who has been listening to more of his stuff, I enjoyed him in The Light at the End. I'm not a big fan of The Light at the End, but the 8th Doctor is great in it. I really liked Storm Warning. I really liked Chimes of Midnight. I just recently listened to Sword of Orion. That's probably one of the best Cybermen stories ever made. McGann's voice work in it is always fantastic. I also liked his version of Shada. So it is yet another step that has helped me appreciate another incarnation of a Doctor that I already liked even more. And it's really helped me come around on the 6th Doctor. I feel like I really snapped around more on the 6th Doctor than the 8th Doctor, because I've always liked the 8th Doctor, because I like the TV movie. And of course, he's great in Night of the Doctor. He might not have a lot of screen time in Night of the Doctor, but by golly, does he give it 1,000% with every second of screen time he has in that. McGann is just great. So I'm curious about the 9th Doctor. I haven't heard any of the 9th Doctor Big Finish. Is it doing him justice? Like, is the Big Finish stuff for the 9th Doctor really expanding on him and fleshing him out and making you appreciate him more? Because I like Series 1 of the modern series a lot. It's one of the best series of the modern series, honestly. And at least we have a whole season of him and not just like a movie. But I'm curious if what Big Finish is doing with him is really expanding on him a lot for people, and people are appreciating him more. I haven't heard any of that. But I'm curious if the same can be done for the 13th Doctor. I think a good place with them coming back to set these stories, and where they're probably setting them, is between the end of Series 12 and Flux, when it's just the Doctor and Yaz traveling. Because I kind of get this impression from the beginning of the Halloween apocalypse that they've been traveling together for a while. I get this. I could easily believe they've been together 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You know, maybe not too much because Yaz hasn't aged much, but she doesn't really look she's aged. But 2, 4, 5 years, I could easily buy that. Because they have this kind of camaraderie and kind of best friend, best buddy energy to them in that, especially that opening scene where I buy that they've been together for a while. So I could easily see a series, you know, a bunch of Big Finish stuff being done in that time period, showing them maybe building their rapport more. And that could be fun to explore. It'd be interesting to see if you could give Yaz maybe a little more of a personality, make her not quite so attached to the Doctor, while again not breaking the character. You don't want to cause continuity problems, but just to kind of flesh her out, make her feel more like a person. And then again, you could do with the 13th Doctor what they've done with the 6th Doctor, and maybe take the things that people don't like about her and do them in a way that works better. Like, it's like writing the character better without feeling like you're writing a new character. Again, Big Finish has done that masterfully with the 6th Doctor. It's very impressive the way they have managed to straddle that line of writing him better to where he's a better character, but not feeling like he's a different character. I wonder if they could do that with the 13th Doctor, where they could write her better. Because the 13th Doctor can be a good Doctor. Matter of fact, as someone who has experienced a lot of the, well, I won't say a lot, but some of the 13th Doctor's other media, I've read several of her comic books, and boy, does she run into the 10th Doctor a lot in the comics. But a lot of those comics are good. I like them. I own them. Several of y'all have sent them, actually. Steven, someone from up north in the States, sent me a couple really big boxes. Probably, matter of fact, the biggest piece of fan mail I ever got was this huge box. And one of the things Steven sent was some comic books with the 13th Doctor. And they were all good. None of them were bad. I enjoyed every single one of them. The mashups with the 10th Doctor, the one where they run into Krampus, those were all really good. And of course, the Stephen Moffat short story, Terror of the Umpity Ums, is phenomenal, which Stephen Moffat released during lockdown, was amazing, fantastic, possibly my favorite piece of 13th Doctor lore ever. Outside of maybe Power of the Doctor, it's really close between those two. But it's really, really good. So the 13th Doctor can be written very well. It's just the problem is a lot of times in the show that she wasn't. And I don't always agree with what Whittaker was doing with the role. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So I feel like if you give her proper writing, you can do a lot of good things with the 13th Doctor. And I'm curious to see if Big Finish can turn some people around on her, can really turn some people on to the 13th Doctor, so to speak, to kind of make people go, you know what? Much like I feel they've done with the 6th Doctor, and how they've expanded stuff with the 8th Doctor and really made him a much more firmer, solid Doctor. There are people out there, their favorite Doctor is the 8th Doctor. I don't blame them. He's a great Doctor. So I'm curious if Big Finish can do that with the 13th Doctor. I'm curious with your thoughts on the 13th Doctor. Do you think that Big Finish can redeem the 13th Doctor? Comment down below and let's talk about it. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button as well. I also have a link to my Patreon down below if you would like to support me that way. I want to give a shout out to one of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney. I appreciate his support, as I do the support of all of my patrons and my YouTube members. It's very much appreciated. It always is. I also have links to the Amazon wishlist down there and the Amazon UK wishlist down there as well. I think I got that out right. Most importantly, thank you for watching.